And welcome to another episode in our live stream series, Science on the 7th. I'm joining you today from a very hazy, uncharacteristically so, Boston, where we've been experiencing poor air quality as a result of wildfires in Canada. Another reminder that air pollution is a problem that we are all dealing with around the world, and solutions that work in one place may be very useful for others. Also, just earlier this week, we celebrated the World Environment Day, a day where people from around the world tend to focus on thinking about solutions and ideas on ensuring that the environment around us is clean and good for all of us. Air pollution is actually one of the environmental issues that has been at the forefront of many conversations in many countries, including in parts of the US this week. And we are finding that cities and countries are coming up with innovative solutions to address the problem of air pollution, to improve the air quality, to make the air better for everyone to breathe. And today we will focus on a region in the world where some truly innovative programs have come up in recent years. We will look at Latin American cities and what they are doing to address the problem of air pollution. To tell us more about the problem and also the solutions, I would like to invite two really excellent guests to the live stream today. First, I would like to invite Juan Castillo, who's here from PAHO and is an air quality and climate advisor. He's worked on this topic for many years, so welcome, Juan. Really looking forward to hearing from you. Our second guest today is Doroti Cuestas, who's joining us from Peru and has been working on the topic of air pollution in the city of Lima for several years. Welcome, Dorothy. Very excited to have you both with us today.
Very excited to be here also. Thank you.
Wonderful. So, Juan, I will probably come to you first, and I think we have a map of PM 2.5 levels in countries around the world. If we can just project it for a minute, usually when we're thinking about air pollution, we're not focusing on cities in Latin America. We're thinking about cities like Delhi and Lahore, and in some cases, some of the African capitals. But in some of the recent work that we did, we found that Lima, Peru actually has really high levels of PM 2.5. So you've been working in this region for a while. Can you tell us a little bit about air pollution? What are the major trends in the region, and what's been going on here?
Thank you, Pallavi, and thank you, Dorothy. It is very exciting to join you guys in this conversation, and also thank you for all your audience and for this effort that the Health Effects Institute is making on raising awareness about air pollution and health issues, and also to try to discuss solutions, right, and approaches to solve this. Yeah, effectively, when we are talking about air pollution, usually because of the burden of disease, of a population issue, we see that the attention is drawn to African regions and Southeast Asia. However, our region in the Americas also air pollution represent a very important challenge for public health in the region. According to WHO, more than 300,000 deaths every year are attributable to air pollution. And it might sound small when we compare with the 8 millions that we have at a global scale. But then when we go to a city level, we can see cities like Lima that are facing high levels of air pollution, but also we can be aware that there is very limited air quality monitoring data in the region. So we really don't know what is the full extent of the issue. So we might be facing a more important issue in the region as well. But even with the data that we currently have, we are seeing an increase on mortality rates attributable to air pollution, to non-communicable diseases, and certain communicable diseases. So it is an issue for the region. We are affected by wildfires, but Saharan dust is also affecting the region. But also we rely on polluting fuels for cooking and heating, polluting fuels for transportation. So we are facing several challenges, but also we are making some progress, and I think that we can talk about that as well during this conversation.
Yes, fantastic. I think, we always hear about the problems of air pollution and the sources that are contributing to it. But definitely so much is happening on the solution side as well. But before we make the switch to that, Dorothy, you're joining us from one of the cities that does come to the limelight, on air pollution within Latin America. So can you tell us a little bit about what the air quality situation is like in Lima, and what are the major sources and what are the main issues that the people in the city are working around related to air pollution?
Yes, of course. As previously mentioned by you, Pallavi and Juan, Lima is one of the most polluted cities. At least in all the rankings, we are on the top of five always. So I have identified two big problems surrounding poor air quality in our city. The first one is related to its main source, which is the transport sector, but not necessarily in the number of vehicles per inhabitant, but rather in poor traffic management that we have here, the lack of inspection, road design, and not compliance with traffic regulations. And all of these results in more than, as mentioned previously, more than 1,600 deaths a year attributable to fine particulate matter levels. And it is also associated that 4% of infant mortality is due to air pollution. So we have a really big problem here. And the second big problem that we have is that we have an insufficient monitoring and surveillance system. We have just, for example, here in Lima, over 20 reference stations in a territory of more than 2,600 square kilometers, where more than 10 million people live, and whose only estimates of urban growth will only exacerbate in the future years. And the city keeps growing. All cities keeps growing. So this problem will only exacerbate with time. This generates a lot of gray areas in the city, which means that a lot of zones and points in the city have any kind of data, so we don't actually know the reality of the problem. Because if only, for example, you use 10 stations located in a small part of the city, and these 10 stations are being used to extrapolate and say that the entire city is in those conditions, then how much can we relate in that data? Ignorance of the magnitude of the problem is a problem in itself, because cities are not uniform, they are diverse, dynamic, and from district to district you encounter a lot of different realities. So the problem is also not just one problem and just one source. It's a lot of sources, a lot of problems, because our cities are very different and dynamic in each point. So if it is not known which areas are the most polluted and which are their main sources of pollution, if we don't have a more comprehensive and complete understanding of the problem, then how are we going to prioritize actions to reduce exposure levels for our population, for the safeness, and in doing so, protecting the most vulnerable ones that are pregnant women, elderly, and of course, our children?
Yeah, I think, you're making so many important points that it really important for us to have the right data to know what the air pollution problem is, and also to think about the people that are likely to be most affected. Juan, as someone who thinks about both air quality and health, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about what we know around the health impacts of air pollution in this region. From some of our work, we've seen that health impacts can be pretty high. Like in Peru, according to the work we published most recently, about 10% of deaths in infants were linked to air pollution. But I'm sure there's a wealth of information to some extent on how air pollution affects people's health in the region. So, can you tell us a little bit more?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that it is very important to bring like this component of environmental justice that Dorothy was mentioning, that we are seeing like the effects of air pollution are the population in condition living in condition of vulnerability is like exacerbated affected by the effects of air pollution. So we are fully aware of acute acute lower respiratory infections linked to air pollution, chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases, ischemic heart diseases, lung cancer, stroke. Um, and as a matter of fact, air pollution is one of the risk factors for non-communicable diseases that also open up a huge new avenue of a stream of work with the health sector. Because one of the challenges that we face is to bring the health sector or bring air pollution as a matter of conversation for the health sector. Because usually governance is within the environmental sector, but we believe that this should be like a joint effort. Actually, Dorothy was mentioning that it's a city effort, like all the city and the government needs to be involved, but especially the health sector and the environmental sector. And we will say that also throughout our life course, we have different exposures and different vulnerabilities. So pregnant women, children, especially those who are in households that are relying on polluting fuel for cooking and heating, the elderly, and also we have like certain occupations, like people working nearby traffic areas or within high traffic area that have like an incremental exposure. And it's worth mentioning that the weight of the evidence is growing, and now we have like more evidence that several diseases are related to air pollution, skin aging, type 2 diabetes, like neurodegenerative diseases, yeah, and even like premature birth and decreased birth weight are linked to air pollution. So I would like to add also that for a region like the Americas, where we have part of our richness is like the young population, that we have like an advantage in having a young population. If we are exposing that population since early ages to high levels of air pollution, we are risking the future of the region as well. So this is something that we are trying to raise awareness of, that we are trying to make it clear for decision makers and for the governments and the industry and population, so that we can have so that we can be aware of that and work on that.
Yeah, I think, in sort of country after country, city after city, we do see this disconnect between who manages and has sort of the governance responsibilities for air pollution, and health often isn't the main sector that is doing it. And it's heartening to see that that's beginning to happen in this region. I'm just coming back from India, where we had very similar conversations. How does the health ministry and the health professionals get more involved in the air pollution discussion? But I think what I really want to hear more about now is also what cities are beginning to do, what types of actions they're taking. And as I said at the beginning, there are some very innovative programs that are happening here. And yes, impacts are huge. We still have data gaps. But it's good to see that cities are beginning to take action regardless. They're moving forward. And I'm particularly excited about this project, Ides Nuevos para la Infancia, that Lima Peru has been a part of. And the program has been underway for a few years. But Dorothy, why don't you tell us about it, since you've been working on this for some time?
Yeah, thank you. And I'm actually very excited to be able to share this project with all of you. Ides Nuevos is a really beautiful project that was born on the foundations of another project that we have, which is the implementation of an air quality monitoring network with low-cost sensors. We mentioned previously that we have a data gap that we have to address. And there are now new technologies that we can use. Maybe we can use sensors, for example, to apply fines and to fiscalization, but we can use it to monitor, to surveillance, to gather information to address some specific issues. And that is what we did here. We have to work with what we have, right? Because we always have a budget problem in, at least in the municipality and a lot of institution. We, in a perfect world, we would have no limit budget, no deadlines, but we have to work with what we have. So we managed to actually implement 44 sensors to reinforce the city monitoring system. This allowed us to have a better visualization and understanding of the reality of the problem. But okay, so you have the data now, but and now came the next stage, because data that does not lead to actions is just meaningless data. It's just a number that you use. but it's just an abstract number. You have to use it. You have to use it to generate actions. And this is how Ides Nuevos was born, with the purpose of designing and implementing specific actions to reduce the exposure of infants to harmful levels of air pollution, and in doing so, influence public policies and create programs that focus on the development and well-being of children from their earliest stages of life. Because I think it's very clear that this is the population that are the most vulnerable ones to harmful levels or to toxic levels of air pollution. So ITES Nuevos was implemented in stages. Well, first we install a sensor to identify the problem. We make a diagnosis of the area, and the places intervene in articulation, of course, always with the community. In the last year, we were able to intervene in 5 spaces. I would like to show you a little bit about a particular case in the surroundings of a school that we intervene in a specific area. So you can see for yourself some of the simple actions actually that we made. I think we have a graphic. Yes, perfect. Thank you. So as can be seen in the diagram, in the graphic, the levels are very red for coarse particulate matter or PM10. Actually, our air quality index is divided only into 4 colors, different, unlike the WHO guidelines that goes from green to purple, we go from green to red. So you have that orange and red are the highest levels or pollution and threshold of care. So when we visited the place, because you also have to make visits and do observation and objective observations of the place, and also talk to the community and in the neighborhood, we identified that around the school, around the area that we were going to interview or we were planning to interview, there was a lot of unpaved ground. This was being used for parking, lack of vegetation, among other problems, such as, for example, delinquency, security, and etc. Can we show to the next, please? Okay, so now another, and something that I would like to highlight here is that intervention must be comprehensive, and they should address various fronts. And when you talk to the neighbors, you should be very careful in explaining them that they will be gaining a lot of benefits, not only environmental benefits, which is, for example, our focus, since in the area that I was in the air quality and environmental assessment division. So we only focus in air quality. But when we implemented a project, we, as the air quality division, didn't work alone. We work with the Department of I don't have the specific word in English, but for example, it was the Department of Social Development, the Department of Health, Sports, etc., and etc. And it was a lot of departments and areas working together for the same project. So we don't only tackle air quality, but we tackle another issues that were surrounding the specific area that we wanted to intervene. So they not only bring environmental benefits, the project that we wanted to make, this was only one part of it, but also it would be an increase in security, enjoyment of the space, because the use of that outdoor space is the right that everyone in our homes should have. And it was not being used properly. It was being used to parking cars and in an unpaved ground that was generated a lot of dust from the vehicles that was probably causing the high levels of PM10. So with very simple actions, actually, such as paving the road with confitillo is the word in Spanish, but I think it's kind of a crushed stone that you can see actually in the left image, up left image.
Yeah.
Picture. We also did planting with local vegetation, a lot of workshops with the children, muralization of the facades. We painted the facade of the school, which was actually a very cool intervention, because we contacted some local artists that were actually volunteers, and they made these beautiful paintings that you can see also in the images. There's actually a paint that absorbs nitrogen dioxide and carbon dioxide. We were able to acquire that, not for this specific project because this was the first space that we intervened, but for the next ones we have done a lot of muralization. We were able to use that additive to the paintings, which was very cool actually. We also make some placement of recreational furniture, low cost furniture. We also identified with our monitoring which times are the safest to do outdoors activities that with less exposure levels. And we did this science in workshop with children, so they can actually go and say, "Oh, I did that," because they actually paint these signals. And also because this is important for them to make informed decision, but also to have a sense of belonging in the intervention, because if they are fond of it, if they are fond of their project, they will take care of it in the long term. And well, all of this resulted in a reduction of 45% of PM10 levels. That was actually a good result and allowed us to implement another spaces in the same year, because this was the first successful result that we have. Can we pass to the next one, please? And I also like to finish with the importance of teamwork and community involvement, engagement, because who better who than those who live in the place to tell you what they want, so you can get a compromise between what they need and what you can give them as your limited budget and everything. And also because they are the key to sustainability and scalability of the project. So it was a really nice project. Hopefully you like it too. And well, you can see, I think, in the comments the link to the specific project, because Ides Nuevos is a regional project. Lima is just one of the cities that is implemented, but also another cities are doing some actions. I think it would be very cool for you to check it.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a fascinating project. I've been very excited about learning more and, also getting other people to learn more about it. Because you were really, as you highlighted, focusing not just on air quality interventions directly, but also a broader suite of interventions that would be helpful in hopefully during the project period, but even after the project period, people would continue to be engaged and interested. And then the other piece, which I don't know how much our listeners would have noticed, but a lot of the pictures had people with masks on. So you pulled this off during the pandemic,
Yes.
which was a time when, yeah, we were all struggling with so many things. So it's impressive that you were still able to bring so many different groups together and make this happen. I'm really hoping that this project, continues in different forms and other cities can also learn from this. Um, this is one example of what's going on in Latin America. And Juan, I want to turn to you now. And I know I've been introducing you as someone from PAHO, so I should probably say PAHO stands for Pan American Health Organization. It works across many Latin American countries and also coordinates globally. So you're really looking at countries and cities across the region. What are the kinds of things that are happening? What are the things people are thinking about? Any exciting projects you want to share with us? And what's giving you hope about improvements in air quality in this region?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Dorothy, for sharing that experience as well. So, the Pan American Health Organization is the health secretariat for the Americas. We are part of the Organization of American States. And we are also the regional office of WHO for the Americas. So basically, we serve every country in the region from Canada to Argentina, including the Caribbean countries. So we have a very diverse region. And I want to talking about hope. I would like to say that the Americas, even though we don't have like usually like level air pollution level as high as in Southeast Asia or Africa, we do have stories of success, like several stories of success. We have had some of the most polluted cities in the world during the last 3 decades. So Mexico City, Santiago de Chile, Lima in this case, also Medellin and Bogota. So those are cities that are telling a story of change. That saying that okay, we have been the most polluted cities in the region, in the world, in the country, but now we are implementing action and we are seeing change, and we are seeing the involvement of the citizens and civil society organizations that are like also driving action in the region. We're seeing an increase in air quality monitoring, and something that I will say that is interesting is like we are seeing like this integrated action within the air quality, climate change, and health, like the opportunity to work together, like to achieve multiple benefits. PAHO is also supporting this work in different ways. We are supporting the preparation of integrated roadmaps on air quality, climate change, and health. We recently delivered one for Trinidad and Tobago, and we're working with countries in Central America to develop an integrated roadmap in the region that now is being implemented on phase two. We work closely as PAHO with UNEP and the Climate and Cleaner Coalition to support national and local governments in the region to advance on these topics. So that like interaction is very important. And Dorothy made the case of evidence for action. So we are also using WHO tools to estimate the health co-benefits of interventions, right? Like air quality intervention, like RQ Plus, for instance. But then we also want to help the government to understand what are the impacts of certain actions that they are doing at the urban level, like if they are doing like implementing green areas close to populations, if they are improving active mobility. So we have tools that we are putting together to help the countries to estimate those benefits and make the case for action, like translate or interpret this data of air pollution of micrograms per cubic meter to make it like a more actionable and close to action and close to decision making processes. So we are working on that with the tools, and we are putting together something that we call the PAHO 120 Cities Challenge, that is basically an effort to mainstream these tools and equip the cities to fully understand the benefit of the action that they do. And I would like to close this part of my intervention saying that during the last decade, we have seen a reduction of air pollution levels in the region, actually at global level as well. So there is hope, and there is things that are working. We need to share experiences. We need to give them visibility, because you need to push the envelope all the time. There are like some actionable things that you can do, even starting with. So you need to, and you will scale up and find like more expensive solution. But there is things that can be done at this time. Thank you.
Oh, that's actually very, very energizing to hear this, Juan, because we tend to think about air pollution as a problem, but it is very true. Mexico City 20 years ago to Mexico City now, we've seen massive improvements, and so many places can learn from it. And similarly, other examples that you gave, better integration of air quality and climate change actions, such a critical piece in today's time when countries and cities are thinking about both of those problems and they both impact health. So how exciting. We will look forward to the 120 city challenge. It should be a great project. But also, in talking to both of you, I can clearly see that you're very passionate about this issue of air pollution, about making air quality better. And Kwan in particular, I've known you for a few years now, and I know how much you put in your time and creativity into addressing this problem. So I want to spend the last few minutes hearing a little bit about your professional journeys, what got you interested into air pollution, what keeps you going, and yeah, just tell us a little bit more. And Dorothy, I'll probably start with you.
Yes, of course. Well, I would say that I still have a lot to learn, a lot of years to gain experience. I'm just started a few years ago, 3 years at least, so I still have a long journey to go. But I would like to share an anecdote that is actually related to what gives me hope. So throughout the project, throughout Ides Nuevos, we did several activations and workshops with children. In one of those workshops, we asked the children, "What do you think there's in the sky?" Because we were expecting some kid to tell us something related to air pollution. It was a topic that we had in mind. And a very excited girl raised her hand and said, "Angels." And a very funny answer for adults. We were laughing internally because we couldn't laugh for outside because we were in a workshop. But with total sense for children, because when she say angels very excited, the other kids were, yeah, you're right, there's angels in the sky. And so what motivates me and gives me a little bit of hope is that it's that we still can, and we are in time to create a world where children, when asked what they think there's in the sky, they do not automatically answer any pollutant, PM10, PM2.5, or any other pollutant, because we have allowed our cities to be so polluted that we are giving them no other choice than to know these problems. So I think it's our responsibility to have a world that we can maintain that innocence of continuing of them to believing that there's angels in heaven instead of pollutants. So I think it's our responsibility. The latest IPCC reports tell us that it's now or never to take actions, and we are doing actions. I think it's our part to contribute from wherever we can in our possibilities.
Great. That's such a beautiful motivation. Juan, how about you?
No, thank you, thank you. Um, so I was kind of a nerd during my bachelor, so I like it like chemistry and physics and math, but also social science. And I, as many of us working in public health, I grew up with this idea of making something good for the world. When I was studying, they gave Dr. Mario Molina a Nobel Prize, so because of his work on the ozone layer, and we actually saw action on that, no? And we saw a change. We, as a humanity, could make an effort to get it up and solve a global issue. So I think that gave me hope as well. So I keep working on like air quality stuff for different reasons, because in my understanding, it was close to the science, but also close to the people. So I like it, and I see like I can see that there is progress, that there is interest in the region. It's a topic of growing concern, but also a topic when we are implementing action. So I'm eager to see what is next. We are working currently on on the SDG agenda, trying to achieve those goals. So let's see how that goes. But this is like, of course, it's like a never-ending work. So we keep working on this, but we want to make this better for everyone. So thank you for your work as well, Pallavi, and the work of the Health Effects Institute on this.
Yeah, no, thank you both for sharing those. And Dorothy, I will put you a little bit on the spot because I know you also run a podcast that talks about environmental issues. So before we close our session for the day, do you want to quickly tell us where people can find you and follow more of the work you're doing?
Yes, of course. Causas Ambientales, Environmental Causes in English, is a platform committed to informing, educated, and promote concrete actions to build a more sustainable and healthy future. Our goal is to raise awareness about environmental issues such as Science on the 70. Something very similar. We are in all podcasting platforms and in Instagram, so you can follow us there. We are very excited to get any feedback and any. We are just starting, so any feedback that all of you can give us, it's amazing for us to improve. Thank you.
Fantastic. And I think the final thing before we say thank you to you both is I know we ran this whole session in English, but there's a lot of people in Latin America who are probably more interested in hearing things in Spanish. So if you would like to share a message with them, I'll give you each a minute. So any highlights, messages of hope or progress that you see around air pollution that you want to share with those people. Juan, I'll start with you this time.
Gracias, Pallavi. Bueno, las Américas ha hecho bastante progreso en temas de calidad del aire y creemos que la región es como un laboratorio de casos de éxito en el que podemos mostrar cómo podemos organizarnos y poder encontrar soluciones. La OPS está en disposición de apoyar a las instituciones y los gobiernos trabajando en estos temas. Creo que por aquí está nuestra información de contacto. Por favor, siéntanse en libertad de acercarse a nosotros porque queremos apoyar estas iniciativas y avanzar juntos en un mejor aire para la región. Gracias.
Gracias, Dorothy.
Sí, claro, gracias. Bueno, me gustaría finalizar con sé que el tema de contaminación del aire, la crisis climática, el cambio climático, son problemáticas reales que tenemos y tienden a veces a ser un poco abrumadoras porque tiende a ser un poco negativa digamos, el conocimiento que tenemos, ¿no? Es como que tenemos un deadline 2030, 2050, estamos en crisis, pero creo que hay que empezar a tal vez cambiar un poco el paradigma que tenemos relacionado a estos problemas y empezar a hacer acciones porque hay resultados, como ya hemos mostrado a lo largo de todo este podcast, hay acciones que se están haciendo que tal vez pueden parecer insignificantes, pero no lo son. De hecho, contribuyen porque se crea una cadena de acciones, de mejoras que van contribuyendo poco a poco a afrontar estos problemas. Entonces, yo mandaría el mensaje de que no hay que desanimarnos, no hay que dejar que nos gane la mala vibra de estas crisis y problemas de contaminación que tenemos y simplemente apechugar y seguir trabajando porque todavía estamos a tiempo para lograr cambios y mejorar la calidad de vida, la calidad del aire y afrontar los problemas de nuestra región y a nivel mundial también.
Thank you both. I think really, really beautiful messages throughout the conversation. And here, no action is too small. We can continue to make progress. And with that, I think I will close today's session. Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you, Juan, for joining us. All the best for continuing this amazing work that you're doing. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us. You can catch up on our previous live stream, and we'll see you on July 7th with more conversations on air pollution and health from around the world. Thank you very much.